Hey everyone, for tonight I will be reading you Reddit while my girlfriend plays Minecraft. Whether you're cooking, working out, or sleeping, I've got some next level stories for you all. I've been digging through Reddit again and found some untold stories, so get cozy and let's dive into the chaos that proves sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction. Alright, our first story is kinda heavy, so buckle up. So during the last year of my grandfather's life, things started to change. He had dementia and was slowly losing track of reality. Or at least, that's what we believed. He kept saying there was a man in the house, someone who would come around at night, take his things, use his stuff. My grandma always reassured him that it was just his mind playing tricks, that she was the only one there. His doctor increased his medication, thinking he was just losing touch with reality. It was heartbreaking to watch. Fast forward to his funeral. A man showed up that most of the family didn't recognize. He said he was an old friend of my grandmother's, just there to pay his respects. In a small town, that didn't seem unusual, so no one thought much of it. About a year later, Grandma mentioned she'd started seeing someone. The same man from the funeral. It seemed innocent enough. They talked at church and everyone thought it was kind of sweet that she was finding happiness again. But then, a while later, she mentioned it was their third anniversary. Grandpa had only been gone for 2 years. That's when it all came together. That man Grandpa had seen in the house, he wasn't a hallucination, he was real. He'd actually been there the whole time. Wow, and to think that Grandpa was right, but no one believed him. To think that he was medicated into silence because of it. It's just one of those stories that makes you stop and think about how sometimes the truth can sound crazy until it isn't. Okay, moving on to our next tale. It's about a father who decided to take matters into his own hands when it came to his daughter's wedding. This one is titled, "He Chose His Girlfriend Over Walking Me Down the Aisle." I'm a 27 female and my fiance and I had been planning our wedding for over a year, and honestly, it was one of the most stressful things I've ever done. My fiance and I were paying for most of it ourselves, so every decision came down to what we could afford, especially the guest list. We decided early on we wanted something small, just close family and friends. The venue we chose had a really strict capacity limit, and we couldn't fit even one more person if we tried. My dad had been dating his girlfriend Rachel for about 8 months. She's nice enough, but we're not close. We've had a few polite conversations at family dinners, but that's about it. So when I was finalizing the guest list, I made the hard choice not to invite her. It wasn't personal, it was just space and budget. When I told my dad, he immediately asked if Rachel was invited. I explained gently that we couldn't do plus ones unless they were spouses or long-term partners we actually knew. He seemed disappointed, but he said he understood. Then, 2 weeks later, he called and said we needed to talk. That's when he told me that if Rachel wasn't invited, he wouldn't walk me down the aisle. At first, I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He said it wasn't about me. It was about respecting the woman he loved. He told me if Rachel wasn't welcome, then neither was he. I tried to explain everything again, the venue, the budget, the space, but he didn't want to hear it. He said if she wasn't part of the day, then he couldn't be part of it either. He even told me I had a week to decide, have my dad walk me down the aisle or stick to my stubborn guest list. I spent days trying to fix it. I called the venue, tried to see if we could squeeze in another seat, looked over the budget again. I even considered asking one of my friends to give up their spot, but it just didn't feel right. This was supposed to be my wedding, not a negotiation about my dad's relationship. So I stood by my decision. I called him back and told him I couldn't make an exception. He said he was disappointed in me and that I was being selfish. He told me Rachel had been so excited to celebrate with us and that I was sending a clear message she wasn't welcome in the family. Then he told me he wouldn't be attending at all. Not just skipping the walk down the aisle, but the entire wedding. I tried to compromise. I offered to have a dinner after the wedding where Rachel could come. I suggested taking photos with her before the ceremony. I even invited her to the rehearsal dinner. But to him, it was all or nothing. The wedding came, and he didn't show up. My uncle walked me down the aisle instead, which was really sweet of him, but it wasn't the same. I kept glancing at the back of the venue, hoping maybe my dad would change his mind, maybe he'd walk in at the last second, but he never did. My mom was furious, my siblings were disappointed, and I had to keep smiling while people quietly whispered, "Where's her dad?" I just said he couldn't make it due to a scheduling conflict, because what else could I say? Then, later that night, Rachel posted pictures of her and my dad at some fancy restaurant. The caption said something like, "So grateful for this amazing man and our special night together." It honestly felt like a slap in the face, like she was celebrating while I was trying not to think about the empty seat where my dad should have been. He texted me the next day saying he hoped I had a beautiful ceremony and that someday I'd understand his decision. Rachel even messaged me too, saying she was sorry and hoped we could all move forward as a family. And I don't regret my decision. My wedding was beautiful. It was full of love and people who truly wanted to be there. But I do regret losing my dad over it. I never meant to hurt him, or Rachel. I just wanted to celebrate with the people who'd been part of my life. I mean, wow, honestly, when you hear something like this, it just makes you think. Parents always say they want their kids to be happy, but sometimes they forget that means letting go of control. And for the daughter, it's heartbreaking, because all she wanted was her dad by her side on one of the biggest days of her life. Alright, moving on to our next story about how an aunt's will turned into a chaotic story that sounds like it came straight out of a TV drama. It all started when my grandmother passed away. She was the best of our family, sharp as a tack until the very end, and she had a small fortune tucked away in a safe. Nothing outrageous, but enough to make grown adults suddenly behave like toddlers fighting over toys. My cousins and I had always joked that her inheritance would be fun to sort out, but I had no idea it would turn into a full-blown family scandal worthy of a Netflix drama. When her will was read, the instructions seemed simple enough. She left each of her children and grandchildren a set amount of money. Nothing unusual there. But then there was a twist. She included a series of handwritten letters to each grandchild, each sealed, each claiming a special gift that was hidden somewhere in the house. I was the first to open mine. It said, "To my dearest niece, Amy, your gift is not just money. Follow the clues in my bedroom, and you will understand the value of patience, trust, and family. Love, Grandma Curious." I went to her bedroom and found a small wooden box under her bed. Inside was a folded envelope, but when I opened it, I realized it wasn't for me. It was a note saying that my inheritance had been swapped with someone else's. I panicked. I ran downstairs to find my cousin Michael already holding a box of his own. And sure enough, when he opened it, he had the cash and check that were supposed to be mine. And he looked innocently smug, like he had no idea why I was freaking out. What followed next was 3 days of absolute chaos. Every cousin, every sibling, every aunt and uncle suddenly became a detective, lawyer, and negotiator all at once. Grandma had deliberately shuffled everyone's inheritance. Not as a joke, not as a mistake, but as some kind of final life lesson on greed, pride, and family loyalty. People started making accusations. "You swapped my box." "No, you took mine." Grandma's ghost is clearly testing us. Even my mother got involved, lecturing everyone on how disrespectful it was to argue over Grandma's gifts. That lasted about 5 minutes before she herself got caught up in trying to solve the puzzle. It got worse when my uncle decided that the swapped boxes were too complicated to resolve and that we should all open them at the same time in a public family meeting. So, on a Saturday morning, we all gathered in Grandma's living room, tension thicker than the dust on our old books. Cousins were whispering, aunts were rolling their eyes, and someone brought snacks, which only made the chaos feel like some surreal holiday sitcom. When the boxes were finally opened simultaneously, we discovered the ultimate twist. Grandma hadn't swapped money randomly. Each box contained something deeply personal, things that represented our relationships with her, our roles in the family, and sometimes embarrassing secrets. My cousin Michael, for instance, opened his box to find an old diary of Grandma's, including a chapter titled, "Why I Secretly Think You'll Never Clean Your Room." I opened mine. It contained a photo album of my childhood with little notes in the margins, reminding me of moments I'd completely forgotten, a way to show that she valued memories more than money. Then, at the bottom of the box, there was a single check with the original inheritance amount and a note. "Now that you've understood the puzzle, this is yours." By the end of that weekend, we were exhausted, crying, laughing, and maybe just a little bit wiser. People forgave each other, but the story of the inheritance swap became a family legend. Even strangers who hear it think we're exaggerating. I mean, sometimes family drama isn't about money. It's about who we are when the things we take for granted are suddenly in question. All right, everyone, this next story is wild, and honestly, it still makes my blood boil thinking about it. This one's about a cousin who decided that networking meant sabotaging family members. And yeah, it was as messy as it sounds. So about 8 months ago, I got super excited about a job at a marketing firm. It was perfect for my experience, my career goals, the whole deal. I'd been working in marketing for 3 years, had solid references, and felt confident. Naturally, I shared the news with my family because, hey, it was exciting. My cousin seemed really interested in the job too. She asked all sorts of questions, what the role involved, what qualifications they wanted, and even the timeline for decisions. I thought she was just being supportive, or maybe curious because she just graduated and was starting her own career journey. We've always gotten along, so I didn't think twice. Fast forward 2 weeks, and I get a call from the hiring manager. She says, "Hey, we received another application from someone with your last name and wanted to make sure there's no confusion." That's when I learned my cousin had applied for the same job. At first, I thought maybe it was a coincidence, but then she'd included details in her cover letter that were almost exactly what I'd said in my own application. Red flag number one. I called her to ask about it. She acted surprised, but said she saw the posting and thought she might be qualified. Totally independent, she claimed. But things started feeling off when the hiring manager called again after my cousin's phone interview. Turns out, my cousin had said some really negative stuff about me. She told the company I wasn't committed, that I had a history of job hopping, and even claimed I'd been fired from a previous job, which was completely false. Basically, she tried to make herself look like the reliable choice while painting me as a disaster. Can you believe it? This wasn't just competition. She actively sabotaged my application using information I trusted her with. When I confronted her, she tried to brush it off, saying she was just being honest and that I was overreacting. Overreacting. She literally lied to ruin my chances. The kicker? Because of the drama, the company ended up not hiring either of us. Her scheme completely backfired, but the damage to our relationship? Permanent. I've since moved on and found another job, but I can't trust her the same way anymore. What I thought was support turned out to be reconnaissance for sabotage. Sometimes family can surprise you in the worst ways. People you trust the most can betray you for their own gain, even when it hurts everyone involved. And in this case, it's not like it was some small disagreement. This was straight up character assassination. Honestly, reading that back, I still shake my head. It's wild how someone so close could do something so calculated, but it's also a reminder that loyalty isn't automatic, even with family. Protect yourself, but don't let betrayal make you bitter, just wiser. Moving right along to our next story, it's called "She Paid for My Rides, but I Was Driving the Whole Time." A couple of years ago, I met someone on a dating app. Let's call her Alana. We started a casual arrangement. The catch? She lived pretty far away, so Uber was basically my only way to get to her. The first time I went over, it cost me around $70 round trip. Honestly, I didn't care. The vibes were good, we clicked, and I had fun. The second time we made plans, I realized that paying that much every time wasn't sustainable. So I asked if we could split the Uber fare, and she agreed. That was fun, but I still knew it wasn't something I could keep doing long term. When I told her that, she insisted on keeping things casual, even offering to pay for my Uber the next time. Here's the thing, Alana was vulnerable, open, and clearly liked me. So I agreed, and yeah, I had fun again, but I was aware of how much I was relying on her for transportation and trying to keep things fair. Then the casual arrangement started to get complicated. After about a month of seeing each other twice a week, things started to get darker. I got a work bonus and finally bought a car I'd been saving for. I never mentioned it to Alana because our conversations were mostly about meetups, not personal stuff. Then one day, out of the blue, I get a notification for $250 from her. She was sending me Uber money for the next 2 weeks. And at that moment, something shifted in me. Instead of telling her I had a car now, I decided to keep it a secret. I pretended I was still relying on Uber, even manipulating situations so she could see me ordering a ride when I actually wasn't taking one. I would park nearby, cancel the ride, and pretend everything was normal. And yeah, this was bad. I even started seeing other people casually while still seeing Alana. I'd come up with excuses like, "Can I shower when I get there?" "I'm gross from the gym," just to keep my side options alive. I tracked Uber prices to make my lies realistic, and she continued accommodating me without knowing the truth. Eventually, I met someone I actually wanted something serious with, and I ended things. Alana. That's when a lot of her feelings came out. She had really invested in our casual relationship, while I had just used her. She was hurt, disappointed, and frankly burdened by how much she'd cared, while I was taking advantage. Even after apologizing for a lot of things, I never told her about the car. I was ashamed, scared, and embarrassed to admit it. Looking back, I realized how manipulative I was and how unfair I treated someone who genuinely liked me. Honestly, it's one of those stories that makes you cringe at yourself. It's a reminder that casual relationships can get messy, and being, even when it's inconvenient, is way better than manipulating someone who trusts you. Alana deserved better. Our next story is called The Night We Met Tyler. So my boyfriend and I recently moved to a nicer part of the city, and one night we decided to take a walk along the beach. It was quiet, the waves were crashing, everything felt normal, until this guy, let's call him Tyler, comes running up to us, completely out of breath. He's panicked and says his boat engine won't start. He asks if we can help. We hesitated, but something about him seemed desperate, so we agreed. I asked what happened, and he said someone had sabotaged his boat at work and he'd lost everything. Honestly, it didn't fully make sense, but I felt bad, so we went along with it. We finally reached this tiny, dingy boat pulled up on the shore. Tyler tells my boyfriend to try starting the engine. 5 minutes in, Tyler's getting anxious, whispering about them coming for him. I'm watching my boyfriend waist deep in water and thinking, okay, we might actually be in trouble. Then Tyler admits the engine won't start because he has no petrol. He insists my boyfriend push him out into the water. We watch him disappear into the darkness, feeling relieved but uneasy. We head back to the path and laugh nervously about how weird that was. We start washing the sand off our feet. We turn around and he's standing there again. Tyler's smiling, calm, and he tells us he wants to repay us for our kindness. He invites us to his crazy Uncle Jack's house and says, for our safety, we should follow a few steps behind him. We don't move. When he's far enough ahead, we sprint home. We tell ourselves we're safe now and try to laugh it off. The next morning, I'm scrolling through the news when I freeze. There's a report about a man attempting multiple kidnappings in a part of the city that sounds exactly like where we were last night. The description matches. Tyler. My stomach drops. Then the report shows security footage from a nearby beach cafe. And there he is, walking calmly with two other people, apparently strangers he lured in while carrying a small duffel bag. My boyfriend and I exchange a look of pure horror. Tyler hadn't just been a crazy guy asking for help. He had been scouting, and the boat? Turns out it wasn't even his. It was part of a plan to isolate us near the water so we couldn't run. We didn't know it at the time, but we had narrowly escaped what could have been a real-life abduction. And the worst part, the news says he's still at large. That story is crazy. It just goes to show how some random strangers aren't just weird, they're dangerous. You think helping someone is harmless, but sometimes kindness is exactly what predators count on. That night could have ended completely differently, and it's a reminder to trust your instincts, and sometimes it's okay to just say no. Moving on to our next story, it's called The Secret Behind My Cousin's Folder. So a couple months ago, my cousin, let's call her Alina, invited me over to her new apartment. She just moved in with her boyfriend, and I hadn't seen her in a while, so I thought it'd be a chill night catching up. When I got there, everything seemed normal. Alina was excited, showing me around, making small talk, laughing about random stuff from our childhood. Then, halfway through, she casually brings up that she's been having trouble with her boyfriend. Nothing major, she said, but he's been acting weird, getting secretive about money and disappearing for hours without explanation. I didn't think much of it at first. Relationships are messy, but Alina seemed genuinely worried. After a while, she leans in and whispers, I think he's hiding something big. I don't know what to do. My first instinct was to offer advice, but then she says something that made me pause. I kind of want you to help me, like, secretly. Can you do that? Of course, curiosity got the best of me. She pulls me into her bedroom and shows me a folder of receipts, bank statements, and some strange photos. Apparently, her boyfriend had been taking out small loans in her name without her knowing, buying things she had no idea about, and even renting an extra storage unit in her name. She had no idea how deep it went. We spent hours piecing things together, trying to make sense of it. I felt terrible for her. This was some next-level betrayal. By the end of the night, Alina had a plan. She wanted to confront him the next morning, and I was just supposed to be a witness, there for moral support. The next day comes, and I show up at her place. Alina's calm but determined, and she's got everything ready. The folder, some questions, and her phone recording the conversation, just in case. Her boyfriend walks in like everything is normal. She starts asking about the charges and the loans. At first, he plays it off like nothing is wrong. Then she drops the bomb. I know about the storage unit. Suddenly, his face changes. He goes pale, starts stammering, and then he laughs. Not nervous laughter, not guilty laughter, but actual laughter. He says, "You really think I was trying to steal from you?" And then he points to the living room. I turn, and there's a detective standing there, completely hidden behind a curtain, holding a badge. He says, "Ma'am, we've been tracking him for months. Your cousin here has been instrumental in helping us catch him." Turns out, Alina had already reported him before I even got there. The whole folder was part of an undercover investigation coordinated with the police. The loans, the storage unit, it was all evidence he was laundering money through multiple people he dated, and Alina was the key to exposing him. We both just stood there in shock as the detective took him away. Alina turns to me, a little smug, and says, "Sometimes the biggest betrayal isn't just about what they do, it's about what you don't see coming." Alina played it cool, but her instincts and courage turned a nightmare into justice. Some cousins are heroes in disguise. Moving on to our next story, it's called The Art Deal No One Saw Coming. Straight on to our next story. So this one happened a few years ago, and honestly, it still makes me shake my head. My Aunt Diane decided it was a good idea to host a family garage sale at her house. Normally, garage sales are harmless, right? You put out old junks, maybe make a few bucks, and call it a day. But Diane's idea of a garage sale was, let's just say, a little extreme. She invited every single relative within a 50-mile radius, posted signs everywhere, and even went as far as putting some of our family heirlooms on the front lawn to get more attention. Picture porcelain figurines, old jewelry, framed paintings, stuff that had been in the family for generations, all out in the sun. Anyway, I volunteered to help because I thought it would be fun, and honestly, I didn't expect much drama. The first hour was fine. A few neighbors stopped by, bought some random stuff, and it seemed like a typical garage sale. But then things started to get weird. Around noon, a guy in a very nice suit shows up and starts asking really specific questions about one of the old paintings Diane had put on display. He kept circling it, taking photos with his phone, and asking if Diane knew the exact history of it. Diane, being Diane, started embellishing a little, telling him it was possibly painted by someone famous, even though none of us had any clue. By 1 p.m., a crowd had gathered, not for the sale, but for the art appraisal. People were whispering, pointing, and suddenly Diane's casual garage sale had turned into some kind of underground art auction. Meanwhile, I'm trying to sell old Tupperware, thinking this is getting out of hand. Then things took a turn for the absolute insane. That same guy in the suit came back with a briefcase full of cash and offered to buy the painting on the spot for $5,000. Diane, thrilled, agreed without thinking twice. We were all celebrating, thinking this was a crazy stroke of luck. But here's the twist. The painting wasn't actually worth anything. None of us knew that. The guy in the suit, turns out he was running some kind of scam. He bought the painting to launder money and he needed a witness, hence why he invited everyone to watch the sale. Diane had no idea. By the end of the day, police actually showed up because someone reported suspicious cash transactions at a suburban garage sale. Diane, bless her heart, had no clue she'd just become an accessory in a money laundering operation. We had to explain everything to the cops while she tried to defend herself, insisting it was just a garage sale. I didn't know he was a criminal. No arrests were made. The painting went back to Diane, technically worthless, but she became a local legend. Our entire family still tells the story like it's some kind of wild urban myth, the time Aunt Diane accidentally participated in an international money laundering scheme during a garage sale. You have to love Aunt Diane. Only she could turn a garage sale into what basically looks like a scene from a crime thriller. It's the kind of family chaos that angst you grateful for your relatives. Usually I just steal the good snacks. Classic only in my family energy. That's all the stories I have for you tonight. There was some crazy twists and turns in there. If you have any of your own stories you would like me to read, send them through and I will read them in the next video. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe. It helps me more than you know. Good night, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.